Welcome to PowerPivot video number 13. Hey, if you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on the link below the video. Hey, if you've been watching this series 1 to 12, we've already covered this topic, but I want to make a quick video and compare and contrast grouping dates in an Excel pivot table and a PowerPivot pivot table. Now, really what we're going to do is we're going to take this table and dump it into an Excel pivot table and see that we can group by dates, meaning we want to group by months and years, roll up the revenue into months and years. Then we'll try it in PowerPivot, see that the same feature in Excel does not exist over in PowerPivot. We'll have to do it a different way. All right, so I'm going to insert pivot table, or Alt and V. I'm going to dump it on this sheet just to compare and contrast. Let's put it in F1, click OK. Here's how easy it is in Excel. And the rule of thumb is if all you want to do is quickly group by month and you don't have all of the things that make PowerPivot necessary, then use a pivot table. Because check this out. We simply drag it down to rows. Bloop, down there, come over, right-click Group. It's that easy. We say months and years. We can see the span there, so we definitely need years. Click OK, drag and drop revenue, and just like that, we get our pivot table. Now, pivot tables never work like that with row labels, so we come up to Design, Report Layout, and either Outline or Tabular. I'm going to do Outline, and we definitely want to right-click and not format cells. Do number formatting. That formats the field, not the actual cells, and I'm going to say like currency. All right, so you can see how easy it is. That is profound, how quickly we can do grouping by month and year in a normal Excel pivot table. Here's how you'd have to do it if we are using PowerPivot. Click in the table, go over to PowerPivot, and I'm going to say Add to Data Model. Again, we wouldn't do it if it was a simple table, but if you're building a model for reporting, you have multiple sources of data, you have big data, then you have to bring it in over to PowerPivot and build your reports. Now, let's just try a pivot table. Pivot table, I'm going to put it on a new sheet, drag and drop from this one table to date. Come over here and right-click, and it's just not there. There's no grouping feature. You're not going to believe this. It's actually quite a number of steps. I'm going to come over to the data, and I'm going to build a calendar table. And first, I'm going to hunt through this data set and see what the max and min is. All right, so equals max. I'm going to come over here, Control Shift down arrow, Shift Enter to put the formula in the cell and jump up. Control 1, Tab, arrow, arrow, arrow down to date and Enter. So I'm going to copy this down just to quickly cheat and do min. Actually, what I did there is I copied the number formatting and the max and changed it to min. Because it's a table, the table formula nomenclature works. So it looks like I have to span from 18 to 15. So now I'm going to come over here and call this date. Control Enter, Control B. And I'm simply going to type the first day 1/1/2001-5, Control Enter. And I'm actually going to build this table so we go all the way to the end of 2018. So watch as I'm going to point to that little fill handle. That's that little thing in the corner there, that little box. Point to it with my cursor, and when I see the crosshair or angry rabbit, I'm going to right-click, drag down, and then back, and let go. And instantly a message pops up. And I want to point to series. I want to say fill the columns because it's going to fill down through the columns. Step value is 1, and I'm going to end at 12/31/2018 and click OK. And just like that, Control down arrow, I have all of the dates. Control up arrow. Now we're going to convert this to a table. Control T, Enter. So now we have our table. We can come up to Design and name it there, or use Alt JTA. And there we see we have highlighted the name. I'm going to call this DCalendar Enter. Now with that selected, I'm going to go up to PowerPivot and Add to Data Model, or I could do Alt-B, and you can see the Y, Alt-B-Y to add to data model. You got to be kidding me. That is a lot of steps. I'm going to come up and format this as a date. Now we have to come over to the second column, and if I want months and years, I have to do a bunch of steps. Watch this. I'm going to say month number, enter. This is called a calculated column. I'm going to say equals month, and as soon as I start typing in the cell, I jump up to the formula bar, month. The name of this table is DCalendar, so I'm going to go DC, down arrow for date, close parentheses, and instantly I get the month number. Now I have to come over here, and if we want month name, which we do, and I'm going to type month, not month name, because I want this to show up in the field list over my pivot table. I'm going to actually hide that. Enter. And in Excel, we would use the text function, but here we say equals format. So we're going to use format. The value, DC, that's the name of the table. We're going to format the date column. The field name is in square brackets, comma, and it's the same exact number formatting that we'd use over in Excel. Custom MMM for 3-letter abbreviation month, and double quote, close parentheses, and enter. Now I'm going to come over and double click and call this year, enter. And then the function equals year. That will work just like Excel. DC, down arrow. Notice we don't have any cell references over here in PowerPivot. They're all table names and field names, and enter. Now if we go try to build a pivot table, existing worksheet. No, I want a new worksheet. Click OK. Now we have two tables, right? When we drag month down to the rows, oh my heavens. So we're having all sorts of trouble compared to a normal pivot table. Alt-Tab to go back over to PowerPivot. Check this out. We're going to have to sort this, because over in the pivot table, it's doing it alphabetically. We're going to have to sort this based on the month number. So check this out. Over in PowerPivot, we have sort and filter, sort by column. I click on that, sort by column. And I have to say, hey, sort the month column by the month number. Click OK. Now when I Alt-Tab, you can see January to December, no problem. Now you can see we sorted January, December, no problem. But watch this. If I drag revenue down here, I get nothing but the total. That's the overall total. So we still have at least one more step over here. We're going to actually have to go to the diagram view, because what's happening is this table is not communicating with this table. We need these dates to be connected to this table. So anytime it sees 1/3/15 over in our revenue table, it knows to put it under January 2015. So we have to go to diagram view, and we have to create a relationship. This is a type of VLOOKUP, connecting those two tables. Here's our fact table. That's with all the transaction. Here's our calendar table. Click date in the calendar table. Notice there's a unique list in that date column, 1 day for each day in the time period. I drag it over and drop. And just like that, we get a relationship. Now when we go and we can click back on data view, nothing's going to happen here. But when we Alt-Tab, go back to our pivot table, boom, instantly we get what we want. Now we need to drag year above months. And we still have one more thing to do here. That formatting, I want it to show up automatically. So I'm going to come over here in the revenue column. Come over here and click the drop down for English, United States, or whatever currency. That formatting will flow through to the pivot table, which doesn't happen over in Excel. Boom, just like that. So I'm going to double click and call this PowerPivot PT. Come over here and right click, delete that sheet, delete. Now I want to do one last thing. Come over here and notice that month number and even this date field here. I want to hide these from this PivotTable field list. The date, you'd rather have them pull from the calendar table than the revenue table, and I don't want that one at all. So Alt-Tab. Come over to month number, right click and hide from client tool. It looks gray here. Let's go over to revenue. Right click, hide from client tool. This is just making it easy on the end user. Alt tab. And so now we have no date here and no month number here. Absolutely awesome. You got to be kidding me. In PowerPivot, it is quite a few more steps to group by month and year. If you're going to be doing it just flat out group by month and year, you got to use Excel. If you have big data, 500,000, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million rows of data, then you've got to start using PowerPivot, or you're going to build a bunch of formulas using DAX, or you have multiple sources of data that are going to refresh often, then you got to use PowerPivot. All right, we'll see you next trick.